Welcome back to the Python Mastery Crash Course for Beginners. I'm Gorret Golden, and in today's session we will dive into Python operators. Operators are essential in any programming language because they allow you to perform operations on variables and values. I'll break them down and I will solidify your understanding with some exercises. So let's dive right in. Now the first type of operators that we have are the arithmetic operators that are used to perform basic mathematical operations. And under the arithmetic operators, we have the addition operator, which is represented with a plus. And the addition operator is used to add two numbers. So for example, if you wanted to calculate the total cost of two products, we go ahead and first of all define variables that are going to store the product prices. So for example, we have computer price, and let's just say that the price of a computer is maybe 400,000. And then we also have the book price, and maybe a book costs 3,000. So for us to be able to get the total cost of these two products, we know that this is always a summation of both prices. So in Python, if you're to work with the addition operator, you can first of all create a variable that is going to store the final result. So this can be total. Then you assign it to the price of the computer, which is defined as the computer price, then plus the book price. So we go ahead and print the total cost, and the total cost is going to be accessed using the total variable. So I'm going to go ahead and run, and this returns total cost as expected. So whenever I want to perform arithmetic operations like additions, you go ahead and work with the addition operator. So I'll go ahead and comment the output here. Now the other arithmetic operator that we have is the subtraction operator. So I'm just going to go ahead and update this to subtraction. And the subtraction operator is represented using the hyphen. So for example, we wanted to find the difference between the price of a computer and the price of a book. So instead of the total variable, we update this to difference. And since we want to find the difference, we work with the subtraction operator. And then for us to be able to print the output, this is going to be updated to price difference. And this will be updated to difference. So I'm going to go ahead and run this up very fast. You can pretty see that the difference is 397,000 shillings. And you also have the ability of customizing the output. For example, if we add the currency unit here, which is UGX, and run, you can pretty see that the difference is this much. And you can also customize the difference value by adding a comma or a separator between the digits. And same applies to the total. So we can add the colons, then a comma, then run, and you can see that it's now formatted. The other arithmetic operator that we have is the multiplication operator, and it's always denoted with an asterisk. And an example of how we can work with the multiplication operator is, first of all, you have to know that the multiplication operator multiplies two numbers. So this is like the simple or the basic mathematics that we always work with in primary, high school, and all through. So for example, I wanted to find the total cost that has been made on buying two products of the same price. For example, we have the computer price whereby it costs 400,000, and we bought 3 computers, meaning that this is the quantity. So we need the total cost, whereby for us to be able to get the total cost, we know that we are going to multiply the original cost price, which is the computer price, multiplied by the quantity. So this is going to be the computer price multiplied by the quantity, and take note of the symbol that it is an asterisk. And for us to be able to display the total cost, or the total unit cost. So this is going to be updated to total unit cost, and the value is going to be the total cost for buying the 3 computers. So let's run this very fast. So we know that for us to get the total cost, it's going to be 400,000 multiplied by 3, and that evaluates to 1.2 M. Oh, so I actually have to update the comment here as well. So the other arithmetic operator is the division operator that divides one number by another, resulting into a float type. So a practical example of the division operator is a case whereby we wanted to find the average mark scored by a student from 3 subjects. So first of all, we can create variables that are going to store the mark scored from these subjects. For example, if we say we have Python, whereby the student scored a 90, and then we have Java, whereby the student scored 70, and then we have PHP, whereby the student scored a 97. So we know that the average mark is always a summation of the total marks scored, then divided by the total number of items that we are having, or the subjects that we are having at hand. So first of all, we shall go ahead and create a variable that is going to store the total marks. So this is going to be total marks or total score. So we know that the total score, for us to be able to work with the total score, we work with the addition operator so that we get a summation of the 3 marks. So this is going to be Python plus Java, then plus PHP. And for us now to come up with the average is going to be the total score, then divided by 3. So take note that the division operator is represented using a slash, as you can see, and it's always 1 slash. I'm emphasizing the fact that it's always 1 slash because we also have the float division arithmetic operator that works with 2 slashes. Alright, so now we are going to go ahead and print the average score or the average mark. So this is going to be the average mark. And for the average mark, since we are using an f-string formatter, we go ahead and access the curly braces and pass in the average variable. Now, the output we are getting for the average mark is 86.6 and all these other decimal places. And this is the average mark because we get the total cost, then divided by the total number of items. Now, there are cases whereby instead of using 3, you actually have a variable called number of items, whereby the number of items for this case is 3. Now, instead of using 3, you also have the ability of working with a variable. I can actually add some parentheses here. Then we run. So you see that when we run the file, we'll still get the same output. Whenever we divide numbers or variables, we always get an output of type float. Because when I actually try to pass in the type, can try to pass in the type and say type of the average, and we run the file, you see that the average is of type float. We can also try to format the decimal places, maybe to 1 decimal place. And the way we work with this with the f-string formatter is that you access the colons, then a dot or a full stop, then the number of decimal places that you want. And for this case, we want 1 decimal place. Then you go ahead and run this up. So you can pretty see that the average mark is now outputted with 1 decimal place and the type is still float. Now the other arithmetic operator that we have is the float division operator, and it is always represented with 2 slashes, and it divides one number by another, resulting into an integer. Let's say that we have 2 variables a and b, whereby a is 100 and b is 20. Now for us to see how the flow divisor operator works is that we are going to create a variable called result, and the result variable is going to hold the expression value of the flow divisor of a and b. So we shall go ahead and print the result. Now still with the flow division operator, we realize that line 33 that was printing the average mark was returning a float, but we can also access the average score by working with the flow division in a way that we do not return a float but return an integer. So I'm going to copy this expression and paste it here, such that we define a variable called average flow, or it can actually be flow average, so that we pretty see the difference, and then we assign it to this. Now since we are working with the flow division operator, this must have 2 slashes, and the result is going to be the flow average. So let me rerun this. So you can pretty see that the first output, where we worked with the division operator, it returned a float type and we converted it to 1 decimal place. And now on line 42 we are using the flow division operator and it's returning an integer. So that is the difference between the division operator and the flow division operator, whereby the difference is always in the return type. Now the other operator is the modulus operator, and it's always represented with a percentage symbol, and it always returns the remainder of the division. So for example, we had variable a and b. So for us to actually print the modulus, we can go ahead and define a variable called modulus result, such that we do not have a repetition of the same variable called result. So this is going to be modulus result, and it's going to be assigned to the modulus of a and b. And we know that when we divide 100 by 20, the output is 5, but we do not have any remainder. So let's go ahead and print the modulus result. So on printing the modulus result, the value of a is 100, so it's going to be passed in here, and then same applies to the value of b, which is 20, whereby it checks for the remainder of 100 divided by 20. So when I run the program, we can see that the remainder is 0. So how about cases whereby maybe we had variables like c, and maybe c has a value of 20 and then d has a value of 3. So we go ahead and print c modulus d, so that we can see the remainder of when 20 is divided by 3. So the remainder is 2. So lastly, we also have the exponentiation operator, which is represented with 2 asterisk, these, or 2 stars. Now this operator raises one number to the power of another number. So an example of how this operator works is, for example, you want to find the square root of a number like 16. For example, we can define a variable called number that is going to store maybe 16, and the square root variable is going to be the number to the power a half. So we first of all access the exponentiation operators. Then we know that square root of a number is the number raised to power half, and the half is always 0.5. So this is 0.5, such that we print the square root of this number. I think the best way is to work with the formatter for the string. Then we say square root of this number is, then we access the square root variable. So we know that the square root of 16 is 4. So we expect to see 4 being outputted. So square root of number is, then some colons here. So the square root of 16 is 4, which is true. So here are some questions that you can use for practicing arithmetic operators.